and welcome to the Last Looks podcast, a show where we catch up with talented hairstylists and makeup artists in the film and television industry. We'll pick their super creative brains and find out all the good stuff. Join me, your host, Jamie Lee, in finding out what's what in the hair and makeup departments around the world.
Now it's time for Kit Corner, where we shine a spotlight on artists who've created products with the film and television industry in mind. Products designed by artists for artists.
Hi, Suzanne.
Hi, Jamie.
Now, you've created a product called MYO Cosmetic Cases to help artists on set. Can you explain what the product is and how you came up with the idea?
Absolutely. So it's a touch-up kit that's actually being used by both makeup artists and hairstylists on set, the size of a large cell phone that holds multiple different types of makeup. So it's like the traditional magnetic makeup palette, however, with multiple innovations. We've included things such as a spring latch. It has a gasket in case anything breaks on the inside. It saves your makeup bag. You can put multiple different types of makeup in our case, which makeup artists and hairstylists are loving. You can put pencils, liners, pan makeup, and in our little tiny magnetic containers, you can depot touch-up amounts of liquids, creams, gels. You can even put eyelashes in them, eyelash glue. So it really offers a great variety, and it's just such a perfect palm-sized kit for touch-ups. And how I came about it, I ordered a new brand of makeup and it arrived in the mail in single pans. And I was confused about where to store it. And so I looked up magnetic-based cosmetic cases. I couldn't find exactly what I was looking for. I was looking for a case that was securely closed, that I could use my products both at home, in my purse, and on the go. So in not finding a solution in the mainstream beauty world, I turned to the pros to find a solution, which eventually led me to collaborating with professional makeup artists to innovate our case, with every aspect of our design being intentional.
So brilliant. So what are the main features of the cases?
The main features include the fact that our case is a minimalist approach to makeup. In collaborating with professional makeup artists, we came up with a huge list of criteria of what they were looking for. So lightweight, holds multiple different types of makeup, and is able to be cleaned and sanitized. Those are kind of the main ones.
Very cool. As a tool, how is it assisting makeup artists and hairstylists?
So I'll speak to two different points here. So the first one is it's keeping makeup hygienic and sanitized, which is great for artists and talent. So our case is made of FDA-approved medical-grade material and food-grade materials, keeping your makeup, again, hygienic and safe. Our case can be washed with soap and water, which is great, of course, for COVID. The whole case can come apart. You can wash the case and the pods. It can be sanitized with 70% isopropyl alcohol. It can be disinfected with Lucocide, and it can be sterilized in a UV box. So it was really, really important to us at the very beginning of this whole process to make sure that the case could be cleaned and sanitized. Our case is also an efficiency tool for makeup artists and hairstylists on set. So it's saving valuable on-set touch-up time, and in makeup bags, it's saving both space and weight. Hairstylists are using our kits where they'll put in a pan color makeup and touch up around the hairline of a wig. And then in our Neo makeup pods, they'll put in pomades, creams, gels, and they may have one Neo makeup pod per talent on set. And because it's a magnetic-based cosmetic case, you can put in bobby pins and they'll just stick in there, which is really great for hairstylists as well. Multiple makeup artists have said that our kit is a game changer for them in how they do their touch-ups on set. Patrice Boudreau, who's a makeup artist on Suits, actually gave me a great big hug and said, "Thank you so much, you're saving my back." He was having back issues, and you can take, like I said, multiple products and put touch-up amounts in my case, lightening up makeup bags tremendously. So it's alleviating that physical strain for makeup artists, which is really, really great. And saving time on set, it's quite extraordinary. The other feature of our case, and we're super proud of this, is that we are an environmental and social conscious company. We're a B Corp certified certified company, which is one of the highest certifications a company can receive, acknowledging them as an environmentally and socially conscious company. I'm located in Vancouver, Canada. My cases are made in Vancouver, Canada, with 90% of our materials sourced throughout North America. We are really mindful of our carbon footprint, so we've made all our decisions based on that as well. We also drive an electric car, which is really important to us. That's just one of many things that we do as a social conscious company.
It's amazing. I love it. So where can listeners find your products?
You can find our products online at neocosmeticcases.com. If you have a look at our stockists, we're sold in Canada, the US, New Zealand, the UK, and soon in Australia as well. We have a discount code for listeners. It's 20% off, and you can use the code LASTLOOKS.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Suzanne.
Thanks, Jamie.
Today, I'm speaking with Jason Collins from Autonomous FX, a special makeup effects company based in Los Angeles. We chat about the start of the company, working on set and in the workshop, exciting new developments within Autonomous, and how important positive working relationships are in our industry.
Pictures up.
Last looks. Rolling.
And action.
Welcome to the Last Looks podcast, Jason.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, you're welcome. I would like you to finish this sentence for me, okay?
Okay.
Once upon a time, there was a boy named Jason, and when he grew up, he wanted to be...
An astronaut.
Did you?
Well, that was the first thing I wanted
terrifying.
to be.
Of course.
That was the first thing I wanted to be when I was like 6 or 7, The makeup effects didn't really happen until I was 12, and I found a magic book in a magic store that I was like, holy cow, you can do this? And, that's what started that fire. But yeah, an astronaut up until then.
Okay. So a magic book in a magic store. What part of makeup has got to do with that?
Well, yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. I don't know why a makeup book was in a magic store, but it was. Okay. I was 12 and I was there with my mom, and she took me to this magic store because I was kind of into, a novice magic. I was pretty terrible at it, actually. But, she was taking me to the store to get better, and I found this book there, and I started reading through it, and they had like one little bin of supplies underneath a glass case of like flexible collodion and all the toxic stuff back in the day, and and they had a book up on top of the glass case, and you can open the book and it showed you how to use the collodion and liquid latex and all this other stuff. And I was really into magic and sort of fooling people at that time. And I didn't even know that was a thing. Obviously I was 12 and I didn't know that career existed.
Yeah.
So I got that book and I became obsessed. I kept going back to that magic store and buying those supplies, and I made a victim of my mother and my sisters and my friends, and for quite a lot of years, and got a lot of collodion stuck in hair and a lot of terrible things to people. But
but what were you trying to create? Like what kind of makeups were you doing?
Well, you always start with the easy stuff, right? You start with the gashes and the cuts and the scars and stuff like that. Anything you can kind of do at a kit that doesn't involve casting or life casting somebody or sculpting. Because, at that point, you don't know anything about that stuff until you find other things like, Dick Smith's book or Tom Savini's book or Richard Corson's book, Stage Makeup book. You don't really get into that stuff until you find those sort of treasures back in the day.
Yeah.
And, we didn't have the internet back then, so you're stuck with whatever you can find at the library. And those 3 books opened my eyes, Dick Smith's book, Tom Savini's book, and of course, Richard Corson's book, But so you do what you can do out of those expendable materials like latex and collodion. And it's funny because after a year of doing it, my mom was always my victim. She's like, I can't look at another gashed out leg. I can't look at another. You got to do something different. So
you got to expand a little, Jason. Come on.
So she really pushed me to get out there and find some more knowledge and things like that. But she was always my victim. So,
Oh, that's very cool. So you're going through high school and stuff and coming to the end of that, and you're thinking, how do I make this happen? So what happens?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I was lucky where I found a couple of people as I was going through high school that were into the same things that I was into. And it's very strange. You don't find a lot of people like that, but when you do, it's funny because I've always felt lucky with this career because it's it's always been a passion, and it never feels like work. I mean, sometimes the politics feel like work and dealing with producers and that stuff, and of course the paperwork and things like that. But the work itself never feels like work. And when you meet people that have that same passion and desire and obsession, for lack of a better word, when you're young like that. And let's face it, when you're young, you don't really have anything else going on. I mean, I didn't have a big social life or anything like that. So all I did was this stuff. And I met a couple of friends that were really into it, and we would have these makeup effects parties essentially. And, a good friend of mine, his name is Nathan Hayden, whose brother's actually Eric Hayden. He's a big visual effects guy now. And a good friend. But we met in high school, and I used to go over to his house on the weekends. And, he was farther along than I was because he was, taking the Dick Smith advanced course and sculpting these big creatures and things like that. I was like, holy shit, how do you do that?
Wow.
So, that was just that just educated me 1,000-fold working with him. And so, when you meet people like that, they know other people, like Nate knew a guy in LA named Grady Holder who was working actually professionally and things like that. So you can kind of reach out to these people and learn a little bit more about the business. And much to their credit, they always gave you this great advice. When you're in high school, they said, learn everything, learn a bit of everything. That way, when you get out and you start working in the shops, then you'll know a little bit of everything. You'll know how to mold make, you'll know how to, paint a set of eyes or do a set of teeth or sculpt something. You won't be able to do it, as good as the greats or anything, but at least you are somebody that can present a wide skill set and be used in multiple applications. So that kind of advice when I was in high school, I was lucky enough to receive from people working in the business and things like that. So, that just constantly working. So, when you got out of high school, of course, mom says and grandparents say you got to go to college and things like that. And so as for a backup career, because, makeup isn't a real career. So I chose to go to film school, that was my backup career, which looking back on it is really a silly backup career. Accounting or something like that probably would have been better. But so I went to film school and left that early. And then when I left that, I actually moved to LA proper and I started working in the shops. And my first job was with Steve Johnson's SPFX on a movie of the week. So
cool.
That's how it started. Yeah.
Awesome. And you just kept going from there. So you were mainly doing workshop stuff at that point?
Yeah. And that's what you do when you start out, right? You kind of use the skills that you've honed in from the years in high school and junior high and everything. And what I had honed in were all lab skills, much more than makeup skills. Of course, the end goal was to be a makeup artist, but making things and, anything that you could do on your own and had easily accessibility to was the things that you sort of specialized to. So the jobs that were available to us, to me anyway, at that particular point was, getting in at an entry level in a lot of these shops. And it's funny because the first day on your first job professionally, you just learn, you start learning 1,000 miles an hour. And, and you have to be a sponge at that particular point in time. And luckily I was, I just really absorbed everything around me and realized how relationships work and how there's also a camaraderie to it. Camaraderie. Oh, it's an interesting word. Yeah. There is one in the trailer, but there's definitely one in the shops too. And it's learning how to, be there for other people and they'll be there for you. And, you don't get anywhere without other people. So
yeah, it's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, from there I did, I worked in a lot of places. I worked at K&B for a long time, for a lot of years. Luckily enough, and Howard Berger was always good to me, and Nicotero, and I really was able to sort of cut my teeth there, and was sent out to a lot of sets and things like that, and just grew exponentially there. And from there, I just started supervising other people's shops, and then an opportunity presents itself to you.
And what opportunity is that?
Well, that's funny because I was working for another guy's shop, and I was supervising a shop. And at the time, we were doing 2 or 3 TV shows, and it was a relatively young shop. Started out in his garage, and he was the guy that I met in the shops that I would work with on the weekends and at night and help him out on his stuff. And and he was sort of climbing up the ladder rather fast, and he got a couple of these TV shows, and we were all kind of just sort of learning how to do these things. He was learning how to run a company at the same time I was I was learning how to run a crew for them, and that I learned a tremendous amount as far as interpersonal relationships are concerned, as far as, working with crews and trying to understand their plights and, what they're having troubles with. And, and that's where I really learned that, how much home emotions really come into the workplace every day and how to deal with that. Because at that particular time, I think it was in my mid 20s, mid to late 20s, I didn't know anything about dealing with people or running people, or running a crew or anything. And you start to realize, oh, well, you have to sort of be a therapist at the same time, in order to get people to go because they have issues, whether or not it's ego or whether or not something happening at home or things like that. So, through that experience of running his shop and running those crews, I was really able to sort of hone in those skills of really how to deal with people and draw boundaries and still be friendly, but at the same time still be professional. Yeah. And this sort of opportunity presented itself. I had worked with this gentleman for quite some time, and we were sort of growing apart in that. And it was one of those situations where everything runs its course, right? Relationships run their course and work runs its course. So that relationship had just run its course. And when you're in a position like that, sometimes you get tired of carrying the water weight for the whole shop and things like that. And at some point you realize, well, why can't I do this on my own? Why can't I do my own thing? I mean, yeah, it's going to be hard and it's going to be a struggle uphill and everything, but why couldn't I do that? Yeah. And that's sort of where the name Autonomous was born from, which was, autonomous means, you're doing it on your own, you're self-driven kind of thing. And that's the name of my company. So at the time I was working with a guy, his name was Elvis Jones. And, we'd had a lot of conversations about this and I told him about my idea and he was like, yeah, that sounds great. So he kind of came with me and we sort of built this thing from the ground up. And, I went down and incorporated and I just crossed my fingers and hoped for a job. And we got one and, we worked together for a few years and that was great. So yeah, that's the sort of origin of the name of the company, Autonomous. And it's looking back on it, it's not the easiest name in the world. A lot of vowels for it. I get a lot of people that, when we were first starting, they're like, hippopotamus effects. What does that mean? And I'd be like, wow, people weren't really educated, are they? I knew at an early age what autonomous is, but, a lot of people don't. I get a lot of people that call and they're like, is this Otto No Mouse?
Oh my God. I mean, I knew how to read it and say it, but I'll be honest, I didn't know what it meant. But.
Right. Well, and that's, our logo has this sort of like automaton on there, and an automaton is like a self-driven robot,
right.
And, that kind of thing. So anyway, That's the origin of the name. And, once you get it, you're stuck with it. So, now it's become home.
That's awesome. I think it's great that you were able to see that you were carrying somebody else's weight when you were working for somebody else and thought, why not make this weight my own and start my own company, and all of this pressure that's on me is for me. Do you know what I mean? Like it's your baby instead of looking after somebody else's. And I think that's a great step to make if you feel like you're up for the challenge.
Oh, absolutely. And, it acutely makes you aware of the sort of pressure that you put on other people around you that are working for you. Nobody works for me. Everybody works with me. That are working with me, and I'm very, very acutely aware of the pressure that I put on other people. And, of course, we all have our bad days. And, I don't always have the most sparkling personality in the shop when I'm sort of going through a rough time on a project or something. But, I always try to remember it and make sure that nobody feels like they're carrying the burden of the company, that they're all just sort of playing their part in it, because, that's what it was. I mean, the irony is, the name Autonomous, it's a funny thing because, nobody really is autonomous really at the end of the day. I mean, I still have this wide group of people I depend on and care about and love and, that work with me at the company. And, I don't do it alone. There's no way, shape, or form you can do it alone, and that's been the greatest sort of lesson. I think that it's funny because you start out, I'm going to do this on my own. And you realize, you don't really do this on your own. You're much stronger as a group together. And, Luckily I've got a lot of people that worked with me for a lot of years, friends that I trust, and we've got a good core group of people.
Yeah. And I think that just goes across the board. To think like that is a far more positive way to work. Like, even if you're in the trailer working with the hair department or costume or whatever it is, just that teamwork mentality is just such a more positive way to function and work.
Yeah, absolutely. And we work in a business where it is tough, right? Because it is, in a lot of circumstances, it is ego driven, and I've got my own ego and everybody's got their own ego and everything. But, I think every day the opportunity that I get to work with a group of people in my shop and to come up in the shops the way that I did, because I do realize that everybody gets a turn, right? Everybody gets a turn. And if you support other people's turn, then it makes everything more enriching for even your own experience, when you get a turn. And that's really what it is, and I'm really thankful that, on some of these bigger shows that we do, the core group of people that come in, the hair and makeup teams that work with us and everything, that we do sort of form a tight bond and family together. And I think that's, people attract like-mindedness, a good deal of the time. I mean, if you've got a good head on your shoulders and, you don't got a lot of darkness that you're dealing with, most people do attract like-mindedness,
Yeah.
That's what I'm lucky. I try to, thank the universe for that every day. Sounds a little hippie-ish.
Awesome. No, you got to put the thanks out to something. So
yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. So when you're hiring artists to work for you, whether it's to helping you out on set or in the workshop, what are you looking for in those artists?
Well, I mean, it's a different set of skill sets. I mean, it is and it isn't. An eye is an eye. Somebody that knows what they're doing. It certainly is different here than it is in Europe. And, because I do think that a lot of the Europeans, this isn't true for everybody, but they set up a workshop with sound stages and things like that. And the artists that they're bringing in to apply are also the artists that are making a lot of this stuff. And,
right.
I think that happens way more, overseas than it does here. It's definitely a much smaller pool of the artists that make things in the shop that go to set for those things. And, I think that if you can provide that opportunity for people, always do that, because people take ownership of the work, and ownership of the work is the most valuable thing that you can have. It makes you look good. It makes the shop look good. It makes the show look good. But, a lot, we have unions here and things like that. And a lot of the shop people aren't unions. So, those people, when I hire the people for the shop, they're either a great sculptor or a great mold maker, or they're a great mechanic or a painter. Everything's sort of compartmentalized now because people have gone off to really specialize in certain things. And, everybody sort of has a general knowledge of everything, but people do one thing better than the other thing. And that's what you want. You want to bring in people that are the best of who they are and what they can bring.
Yeah.
So, when we do that, when I staff a show on set, it's a whole different sort of set of artists most of the time. And it's, people that I've worked with and known for years and trust, and that we all get along, and it's sort of going to be drama free, and that, have your back, And I think the first thing is, besides talent, but everybody has talent that we know and work with, is the personality, right? Because you have to jive with them, and you have to know that, in a rough circumstance, they won't freak out, or they'll know how to sort of approach it. If they're having a problem with a producer or director or another artist in the trailer or something like that, you want somebody with a level head, somebody that can really sort of take apart a problem and really understand for the base of what it is, and try to sort of disarm it rather than make it worse. Yeah. And, that's sort of what I really look for above all, even above talent sometimes. I mean, you'll be working with somebody that, let's just say there's 5 people that are just much more amazing than them, but they are superb at handling people and things. And, luckily all the talent's pretty much on par of everybody that I work with and I know. So, everybody's really good. And you just find those people, and you know, like I said, you just really sort of really navigate yourself towards those people. You know, like-minded people find like-minded people. And that's really what I sort of hire for when I'm staffing a show. And also, you know, because I do prosthetics mainly, and you know, we're building stuff in the shop and everything, it's always worthwhile to me to get people that do have a shop experience and a shop background, because their suggestions, you know, so there's a continuity, right, between the studio, the shop that's building it, and the makeup trailer that's supplying it, you know. So, you know, whether you have a Mark Garbarino or a Richard Redlifson or a Glenn, you know, working with you, they have a good shop background, you know, and they could say, I think the foam's a little too dense. I think, you know, or I think that, you know, the silicone, maybe you can bump up the plasticizer to 180%, 190%, you know, things like that, you know. So those things are really helpful, because you can really zero in on what the problem is. And rather than somebody that's just a great applicator that doesn't really have a lot of great experience making the stuff, because they can't really problem solve it for you. They could just say, I'm just having this problem. Yeah. You know, you have to sort of play 20 questions to figure out exactly what the problem is. Whereas somebody with a little bit more experience can say, well, you know, I think it's the dead nerds leaching, or this or that, or whatever it is, you know. And so, yeah.
That just makes sense. So for yourself, being mainly in the workshop and then transitioning to being able to work on set, like getting into the union and all that kind of stuff, I'm assuming that's helped greatly with the business, being able to do both of those things.
Tremendously. I mean, you know, joining the union about 10 years ago or 11 years ago, whenever I did, was sort of a game changer for me. As far as the shop was concerned, you know, it was, you know, I was able to get out there and meet a lot more people, because, you know, people don't mind getting things for a shop, but, you know, and sort of, you know, they say, okay, well, you guys make this stuff, you make it for me, and then I'll have these people apply it. But if you can get out there and stand behind your work, like you're going to bring it to set, or you're guaranteeing it, or, you know, people really, really like that a lot more. So a lot of these department heads that I'd worked with really like that I can build the stuff and bring it to set and work with it. And, you know, I can make sure that I stand behind the product in which we're building, and, you know, whether it's creatively stand behind it and guarantee the craftsmanship behind it, you know, that really sort of putting a face with the product really was helpful for a lot of people. And, you know, it helped my shop tremendously. When you're not department heading a show, or you're not doing, you know, those things, you're able to sort of have a lot of tendrils with a lot of different places. You know, you can go work this show this day, work that show that day, you know, work this show that. And you can sort of get to know a lot of people really quickly and start building a lot of things for them. And then, you know, what's great is we also build things that, you know, like bodies and surgical rigs and mechanics and things like that. So you meet other people when you're on set. Like the prop guy says, I need 10 bodies, you know, with distended necks, because they're going to be hanging here. And you're like, well, we can do that. You know, so
that's cool.
Yeah. So that was really, really a game changer for me joining 706.
Yeah. And I think being able to, well, yeah, as you say, being able to see your product through to the end, like being able to go on to set and either apply it or oversee it being done, that's awesome. Because if you're just constantly sending stuff out and not being able to actually see or follow that through, would be frustrating at times.
Yeah. And it's also frustrating for them, because a lot of the times they can't explain the problem if there is an issue. You know, why the director didn't like something, or why, you know, they're having a problem with the way a piece is laying, or something like that. Like maybe it goes too much into the hairline or the beard, or something like that, you know. So it's frustrating for them as well, you know, if they're not prepared to handle those things. Luckily these days, I mean, everybody's got a great skill set. I mean, it's sort of so rapidly changing that everybody knows how to do everything now. And I think that that's great. You know, it's less compartmentalized than it used to be. You know, department heads are, you know, really, you know, and I think social media, you can think things like this podcast and other things that people are doing, where the information out there is just, you know, if you want to learn this stuff and you want to be comfortable with it, it's just out there in spades, you know. And I think that where we, you know, in the States at least, used to be far more compartmentalized, I think everybody's sort of gravitating more towards the European model, which is everybody knows everything. And effects guys are learning a lot more beauty, and vice versa, because beauty is sort of factoring its way into our applications. You do an old age makeup on a woman, you know, you still have to put that beauty into it.
Yeah,
you know,
and your likeness makeups and stuff like that, where you have to put a whole beauty makeup on top of a likeness makeup is like, oh.
Right. Yeah. And you have to know what materials to use and things like that. And, some materials don't really work well on silicone, others work better. And, but then you have to have the skill set to actually pull it off,
Yeah.
Which is everything.
That's very cool. So when Autonomous is hired for a job and it's coming down to how does the dynamic work between yourself and the head of the department and the directors and everything when you're doing kind of like character design and development and things like that? How does that normally work?
Well, it's interesting because it works in a couple of different ways. Every project is unique and every set of personnel is unique. There's a lot of projects where we get brought on by a department head. And when you're hired by the department head and you're referred to production by the department head, then, you want to make sure that you include them in every decision. I mean, some are running the department, like when I work with Donald Mowat, it's all his department. Right. It's, I'm not really dealing or interfacing in with the producers as much, he's sort of doing that stuff. So I'm answering to him. Other department heads would much rather you answer specifically to the producers because they feel like they don't really want to get in the middle between what you're building and what the producers want, so everybody's a little bit different in that circumstance. And then when I'm hired by the producers, you generally are our own department, right? So it's like, there's sort of a trifecta approach there, and every scenario sort of works differently with each of the ways that you're hired, essentially brought onto a project. And each and every one of those have their own respect issues, like you never want to overstep your bounds with the department head. In general, it's a good idea, but especially when they bring you on to a project, you want to make sure that they understand they're in the loop of everything. Even if they don't really want to be hands-on, they're still in the loop of it so that they're not surprised by anything, because inevitably they're going to have to answer for it, even when you're your own department. So communication is key. Communication and respect.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a good way to go about it. I was going to ask you, do you have more of a passion for certain types of makeups, like realism or likeness makeups compared to creature and gore kind of stuff? Yeah,
absolutely. I think realistic and likeness makeups are, that's the sort of, that's the ultimate goal, right? That's the ultimate magic trick, if you will. It's like how to really, really, really fool somebody, and creatures and stuff, I wouldn't say that creatures are easy. I wouldn't say that gore is easy. Every sort of effect has its own dynamic and has its own challenges, right? So, with creatures, it's, you can have something with sharp teeth and pointy ears and everything. But, if you really want to do something different that people haven't seen, that's really when it becomes hard and challenging, right? As far as design is concerned. And I do love doing creature work. I do love doing, it's really great when you can do character creature work. When a creature comes on and they've got this great character. It's not just something with sharp teeth and eyes and everything. It's kind of all of it in one bowl. It's a cool character, whether it's a goblin or it's that's the funnest stuff for me, I think. But then the realism stuff is the hardest stuff that you can possibly do, and especially as you sort of climb the ladder and you work with a lot more higher end talent. Whenever I see something, a successful realistic makeup, my hat's always off to them, because I know that there's much more going on behind the scenes than just the makeup, because we can sculpt something beautiful and put it on and everything, but you have to deal with a lot of the talent has their own opinion. Maybe it's ego. They don't want to look so old or so overweight, but that's what the script is calling for, and so you kind of have to bring them into, especially the bigger the actor, of course, you have to include them, and, they're going to have their 2 cents, and you have to make sure that you diplomatically sort of handle that approach to it. As you're designing the character, so that it's all one thing, and you're not alienating them, because when you alienate them, then they don't get to be part of the process. And let's face it, at the end of the day, your makeup only lives or dies based off their performance. Yeah. So, you have to really make sure that they're in your corner and stuff like that. So that's its own set of challenges. And I enjoy that and love that as well, So it's not just like a dead sculpture sitting on somebody's face. They brought it into a character. But I think, to answer your question, I think I really love just character work, not just an old age for the sake of an old age, or something like that. It's just somebody that brings a character to something, like I always love, like, even though I don't really like the movies, but I love, like, Eddie Murphy stuff, like The Nutty Professor and Coming to America and stuff like that, where he's so great in the makeups, and he really makes these like characters that are just so over an edge, they're over the top, but they're so much fun. You know, I love that kind of stuff where it's like, you know, a lot of life is brought to it. Good partnership between performer and makeup.
Yeah. So since starting the company back in, what was it, like 2005?
Yeah, we officially started in 2005. Yeah, we just had our 15-year anniversary. Wow.
That's very cool.
No. Actually, 15-year anniversary would be in September. So yeah, we're coming up on our 15-year anniversary.
Yeah. So how has the company changed and grown since then?
Wow. Yeah, it's changed a lot. It's grown tremendously. I mean, you always have moments of growth and then retraction, you know, depending on the market and where people are shooting and, you know, what's going on. You know, like when we first started, we had a lot of growth because we were new on the scene and, you know, we were talking to a lot of people and, you know, we were able to get this show or that show and build a small piece of it. We weren't the main shop, but we were able to provide a couple of things and we did that and we grew and, you know, and then, you know, you sort of come into uphill things, right? Like, you know, let's just say there's a writer's strike or something like that. So you have to retract your business a little bit because, you know, things are shutting down. You know, when the economic crisis hit in 2008, it was tough for us because we were still a relatively new shop, you know, and things really sort of retracted. People weren't making the big stuff that we were getting a small piece of, like building, like, let's just say it's like Race to Witch Mountain when we first started to do that. And, you know, there was a lot, you know, big set pieces we were able to build. Well, people weren't making the $100 million films for a minute there. Yeah. You know, so they were just making like, you know, $100,000 film or they were making some gigantic tentpole movie, which all the big shops were doing. So that caused us to sort of really sort of retract a little bit and to sort of rethink our approach to it. And our approach became not being a mega shop so much as a boutique shop, right? And it's just tailoring ourselves to small makeup applications and things like that and creating appliances for other people. So, you know, I mean, over the years, it's changed dramatically. I'd say starting about 2013, 2014, you know, we started getting really much bigger and I expanded the company and I brought on somebody to run the day-to-day operations and then a floor manager. And then, you know, you have to sort of compartmentalize like that because your time starts getting spread out everywhere. Yeah. And because, you know, we handle anywhere from like 1 to 4, 5 projects at a time sometimes. Wow. And, right. You know, you can't really, you know, doesn't mean that all the projects are huge, but you can't contain all that information at once. And also when you spread yourself so thin, people don't like that because you can't personally talk with them or deal with them. So they don't feel like they're getting your best. So, you know, you start to develop relationships with people that you bring in, like, you know, like the guy that runs my studio, Mike McCarty, I'm able to have him start the relationships with the people and everything. So now there's complete relationships going on that I'm not really, you know, I'm aware of them, but I'm not fully engaged with like he is, but they're getting the full attention from him and full attention from the company. They're not feeling left out. So we grew dramatically during that time period and, you know, we're still growing. I learned a lot of lessons actually this year because we were doing like quite a few big projects. And I learned that I don't want to be a mega shop. I don't get enjoyment out of being spread so thin in so many different areas. You know, and there's 2 approaches to it, right? You own a studio and you get to watch it live and breathe and become its own living, breathing organism, which is fantastic. Yeah. But then you're still an artist. And that's the thing that you struggle with sometimes is you have to make decisions that are based fiscally or, you know, on what you can or can't do in the amount of time, the amount of money that you're given for something versus what you want to do for something. There's that struggle with it too. But, you know, I mean, the big lesson that I'm walking away with for the last year and a half or so is just how I want to sort of curtail my company to be just more engaging and personal on smaller, not smaller projects per se, but, you know, not taking on 5 big things at the same time, because at that point you're just doing a little here and a little there and you don't walk away with the satisfaction of really feeling like you had your hands in something. Yeah. That's what I need, you know, as an artist and what I need as a creative person.
Yeah. And I mean, it's something that your clients need as well. They need you to still be passionate about it and like hands-on and getting in there. So I think being able to give them that service is pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know, your company's brought on for a reason. You know, they liked what you did in this show or this project, or they like what they've heard about you, you know, and you have to be sure that you were able to give that to them, you know. Yeah. if not, what's the point of doing any of this? So, there's always lessons to learn. And that's the thing that I walk away with all of this, is that the reason why it never gets boring or never gets stagnating for me is that, I'm always growing, whether I'm growing as an artist personally on set or whether I'm growing, with the company, and I still go and do just day playing gigs for a lot of people that my company's not really even involved with, and I do that because it's fun. I don't have any responsibilities, but B, it's important to get out there and to keep your skills sharpened. And it's important to work for other people and to see how they're running things and to pick up on what they're doing, because you never stop learning. And that's what I like about this, this industry and this job. And that's why it's never boring,
Yeah, no, same. Totally agree. I was going to ask, your company's doing something new. Is that right?
Yeah. What we're doing is, we get a lot of calls and, like I said, we deal with a lot of TV shows and a lot of things that are happening really quickly, right? There are things that don't have a gestation period of a typical pre-production of, we need to get somebody in for live cast and sculpt and mold and create this thing. So, and I think that that's a good deal of all television and film production these days is everything has just happened so fast now. Pre-production is sort of thinned down on a lot of things. And so, we get a lot of calls from a lot of department heads that are always asking for, what do you have that's readily available? What do you have in your inventory? What do you have for stock molds and things like that? And, it's tough because, you spend half a day or or my project managers spend half a day, combing through all of our stuff to send pictures to department heads and, how big is it? What color is it? And, I don't know if it'll work. Do you think? And, when you do that, you're kind of wasting money, right? It's not really cost effective because you're taking your project managers off of the daily shop builds and things like that to answer these questions.
Yeah.
And they're important questions and they need to be answered. So, what we started doing for ourselves, we created a database for our company. So it's on our central server so that, we can consult this database and pull up, whether it's a scratch or a burn or, a slit throat or whatever, and know all the specifics, know where the piece is. And what I decided was last year, I was like, well, we got this whole catalog that we're consulting. So why not make this catalog open to everybody?
Okay.
Open to all department heads, not everybody, because, we don't really have any, we definitely don't really want to service, novices or the haunt industry or anything like that. We just really want to just keep doing what we're doing with department heads and things like that. So what we're doing is we're putting out a catalog that's available as an extension of our website. So a department head can log in and they can see every appliance that we have that's in our catalog. They can put it in their wish list. That gets emailed to us. There's a picture of the appliance applied. There's a picture of what the size of it is. There's a picture of what colors it comes in. Of course, you can make it any color you want, blah, blah, blah. And then, we're doing the same with tattoos because we have hundreds and hundreds of tattoos. And, tattoos are also another one of those things where people are like, I've got this prison scene tomorrow and I need, 40 Russian prisoners with all these tattoos. And so they were able to go into our brand that we're launching called Autonomous Ink. And they can go through and they can sort of pick this tattoo and pick that tattoo. And what it does is it makes it easy for them and makes it much easier for us. It's not something that, I think that we're concentrating our company as a huge revenue stream for, but it's one of those things where it just makes everybody's life easier. Department heads have 5 million things they're doing throughout the day. They also don't have the time to get on the phone for an hour and a half and figure this thing out. They can go to the website, they can look at it, they can download the picture, they can show it to the producer. They like that, great. Hey guys, we want this, 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 and this.
And then do you run that piece, or you already have a stock of stuff, or
we run it? So we can have a piece to somebody the next day, which in most circumstances, which is pretty fine. Good. Obviously, if there's something that's an emergency, we can do it. You always want to kind of cast fresh pieces. You don't want things sitting around. Yeah. Because, just the wear and tear of things and how things are stored and everything. So, yeah. And, with the tattoo stuff, it's great, too, because, we have no interest in putting anything out in stores or anything like that. Again, it's just more of an easy accessibility for the people that we are already engaged with and people that, don't really know much about us. It's just something that you can easily take care of for yourself. It's sort of like a one-stop shop kind of thing. And, again, it's not something that I think we're going to change the industry with, but it certainly is something that I think is going to make everybody's life a little easier.
Yeah, it's more efficient. It's a more efficient way of working. Yeah, that's awesome. I was going to ask, since Autonomous started and you guys have been doing jobs, what has been, a favourite?
Ooh.
If you can choose a favourite baby out of all the babies that you have created.
Yeah, that's interesting. Favorites work in different categories too, right?
Yeah.
I loved these people, but I didn't really love what we did, or I didn't love their creative decisions, but I love, or I really love this thing that we created, but I really hated those producers.
So what's been the most enjoyable one that you remember that you just loved working on?
Enjoyable. We did a small film a couple of years ago that I really loved. Not hardly anybody saw it, but it's a movie called Under the Silver Lake. And it's by a guy named David Mitchell, who's a great director that I love working with. And he did a movie called It Follows. And this was his sort of follow-up to that movie. And it's Andrew Garfield was in it. And it's kind of this offbeat sort of film noir, kind of like it had a lot of 70s influences to it and things like that. But we were able to create so many things with it. Like there's so many offbeat characters. Like there's this character called the Songwriter who wrote every popular song you could have ever thought of. And he's sort of the linchpin of this movie. Now, David wanted the actor to be a really great actor that had a youthful energy. So he wanted to cast somebody that was younger, like in their 30s to 40s. And he wanted the look of the character was supposed to be like over 130 or 140 years old. But he still had this vibrance about him.
Had the sparkle in his eye kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So that was like a real challenge, right? Like how far to take the makeup, right? Because he still wanted the appearance to be ancient, but he wanted some youthful elements. So it's like, we did the hair work had some youth to it, and the eyes had a little bit of youth to it, but the makeup had a little bit of age to it. And that was just one of those like really great relationships going back and forth with the director that was really like, really supportive for what you do, but really also just sort of gets his kicks off and enjoys it and allows you and trusts you to sort of to create something like that. And so I wish more people saw that film. I don't think the studio really knew what to do with it, so they kind of buried it a little bit. But it's still a fun movie. It's really fun if you have like 2 hours, a little over 2 hours to sit there and immerse yourself into this like, little world. But so it's usually the smaller ones that are a little bit more fun because you're more hands-on and engaged with everything and everybody.
Yeah.
The bigger ones. Yeah.
Yeah. I think too, if you have a director that's really into the collaboration and is excited by what you're doing, it's, I don't know, it's just so much more fun because you're just like kids playing and having an awesome time and going, this is awesome. Let's do it this way. And it's fun. Yeah. Well, and I've done a lot of jobs where I've worked with directors that don't really know what they want. I did a job a few years ago and, it was a director that wasn't really familiar with effects, and come to find out he just really doesn't like effects, but the movie had a good deal of effects in them. But, and so he had to sort of wrap his mind around metaphorically what the effects meant for the characters and things like that. And, that was his approach to it. And, that was, while that filming experience wasn't the greatest filming experience I've ever had, it certainly taught me a lot, and that kind of became a little bit of a favorite project because it taught me how to deal with people that, that aren't excited about what we do. Yeah. And that need to have a deeper explanation of what it means for their characters or something. It's just not something their characters are doing. It's something their characters are experiencing. And, the good and the bad, right? Every creative person you work for has, their own dimension that you have to deal with. And, while some are great and supportive and they're like a kid in a candy store, others are, they're challenged by this and you have to help them get through it. And that becomes kind of like a fun process as well. I mean, it's never fun when you're doing it because, you're doing 5 to 10 5 to 10 ideas that they don't like to the one idea that they do like. But when they like it, that's amazing. And you've gained their trust on that situation, which is, and you break through to them. And, it's, while I don't see them, when the project's done, they tell you they're never going to do another film with a lot of effects because I think that it's just not their wheelhouse, right? Yeah. Their wheelhouse is dealing with like, interpersonal relationships or romantic comedies or things like that. And that's also another thing, it's like, a lot of people, a lot of creatives out there, they have a block when it comes to this stuff. And, but I do like doing that. I do think that it's a great challenge and I learn how to sort of
how to spot that in somebody very early on now. And how to sort of go in sideways, because they're like, my film's not about the effects. And you're like, no, never about the effects. Even with films that are nothing but effects, that's never about the effect,
Yeah. I think too, there's probably those people that you come across that have maybe had a bad experience in the past and just like, no, I don't like effects because they obviously they worked with someone that it was just a terrible situation. But then by the end of you working with them, you've flipped them over and they're like, actually, if it's done right, this is amazing.
Yeah. And it's funny because whenever a director or a producer says something like that, you're like, oh God, here we go. And it feels like you're constantly proving yourself to them. Yeah. And you are, but at the same time, you're an ambassador to what you do. And you don't want it to be written out of things in the future. And it's important that you sort of carry that torch and you show them that it can, it doesn't have to be an arduous process like it was. It can be something that they can enjoy and everything. Those experiences, they're a diamond in the rough, right? You don't really, when you realize you see that sparkle in somebody's eye and they realize, oh, this really can be great. This is great. And you're like, I've converted somebody.
Yeah, it feels good. I've had the same thing with wigs when a director's just been like, I hate wigs. I don't want to work with wigs. Yeah. And it's just like, oh, maybe you just haven't had an experience with where it's been done right. And then you do go through the camera tests and they're still sitting on the fence going, oh, I'm not sure if I want the wig or not. And then they see it on camera and they're just like, oh, actually, that doesn't look too bad. I like it. Looks good. It's like, yes.
It's funny because I've also found that with people like that, I've worked with some really highly intelligent people. We were intelligent, and they work on a lot of different levels, right? They work on this emotional level and they work on the cerebral level and they work on this, and they just don't want to be played, right? Meaning they want directness and they want authenticity. And, there's so many, they've had these experiences where they've been played by people, meaning, people are like, oh, you'll love it. It'll be great. This is what you need. This is what it wants. This is what, when people are doing that, they're shutting them out. They're not allowing them to collaborate and they feel played. And I think that that's a thing that, everybody needs to feel like they have their hands in it, and they need to feel like in order for them to feel like they have gotten something out of it. So there's the psychological as well as what ends up on the screen, especially, if you want to carry on doing business, right? Meaning you want those people to call you back the next time because you want them to have had that sort of mutual experience with you where you guys actually collaborated and created something together. Rather than just moving on to the next shot the next time or the next, makeup artist the next time. You want to build relationships because you enjoy it, but also continuity of work.
It amazes me, Jason, that you get to this point and you're so knowledgeable about all of these things and you didn't go to college for it. So many people go to college for years to learn, do you know what I mean? To learn business skills and learn people skills and learn how to manage people. And it's amazing. It just goes to show how much you can learn just through doing it, through experience. It's amazing. It's great.
Absolutely. And drive is everything, you have to want it. You have to have that passion. You have to sort of,
just being open to it.
Be open to it and eat, drink it and sleep with it. And, passion's a whole other thing besides education, and I think that once you have it, you do what needs to be done to make it work, to make it successful. And a lot of that's just, learning how to deal with yourself. More importantly, you're the biggest obstacle there is.
Yeah. I had somebody ask me the other day, I was just chatting with them about the podcast and like, what should I ask this person? Need some questions, rah-de-rah. And they were like, oh, could you find out if like heads of department, if they've had any training on managing people or how to run a department? And I'm like, I was thinking about it and I was just like, I doubt anybody has.
No, I don't think so.
I was just like, I think I could ask that question, 100 people that question, and probably maybe 100 would reply that they have not had formal training in that way. Maybe they've come from a career before getting into this line of work where they had experienced it and learnt it, but I feel like it just comes with experience. I mean, you just kind of throw yourself into it and learn along the way and watch and grow from just working with other people.
Absolutely. I don't know if anything, and our field isn't one that you can take a seminar on, right? Because you're dealing, not only are you dealing with HR and managing people and making a safe workspace for them, an environment for them, you're dealing on a much more vulnerable, raw level, and that's creativity. Whether it's the artists that are working with you in the trailer or the shop because they have their own sort of rawness and creativeness that they bring and vulnerabilities, or whether it's working with producers and directors. It's that thing that you can't teach. You have to work at it to develop those skills. And I've had a lot of misfires with a lot of people that got me to this point, that taught me these lessons. You don't come out of the bag knowing these things. It's only something you can get with field experience. And I don't care how many classes somebody takes. No. You'll learn the book, but you won't learn to read the signs.
I think on the other side of learning through your own experiences in the way that being treated in a way that you did not like, and you think, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
you'll see
absolutely.
the positive stuff, like how somebody runs something or does something. You're like, oh, that's really cool. But it's always going to stand out to you more when it's something that affects you in a negative way. And you'll be like, you know what? That is not a cool way to do things. I'm going to remember this, and I'm not doing that to another person because it feels horrible.
You're like, I'm definitely not going to be a dick.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's thank goodness that those people are out there behaving like dicks, because
makes you shine.
Makes you go, I'm not gonna do that. That's not cool.
There really is no reason for it. No, there just isn't. It's not. Let's face it. It's not. We're not rocket scientists here, and to use an old tired cliche, but it is. We're all people that are supposed to be loving and enjoying this, and loving and enjoying that camaraderie. And things get hard sometimes, but it's not that hard. To be a civil human being. And that negative reinforcement I've learned more from than I did the positive, for sure.
I think I'm the same. Yeah. And I have to say, having worked with you a few times, I appreciate your attitude, because it's true though, because you
sarcasm.
But you always, every time I work with you, it's just like, this is going to be fun. Like Jason gets on with his job and does what needs to be done, but at the same time there's a smile and there's a laugh and there's a, do you know what I mean? Like it's good. It's a good time.
I feel the same. Every time that I get lucky enough to share the trailer with you, which, we have been in the past, it's like, it's one of those experiences where you're like, because I know that you're going to be working with great people too, and it's like, it's not just you, it's like the whole team. And so it just feels, it's fun. Yeah. It's fun, and it's fun to have that process together,
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, I'm the same way. And you're like, your bubbly personality is I like the New Zealand references for sidewalks and
just entertainment. See, I don't even, you point things out that I'm like, I say that differently. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, so you're just educating me all around. There you go.
It's a much better way of saying it than I say things. Trust me.
So within our industry, there's some pretty stiff competition. So I want to know, what do you think helps you stand out?
Oh, I don't know. You got to ask somebody else that. I think that, artistically, do we stand out from everybody else? I don't know. There's a lot of great work happening out there. I think what really sort of makes us stand out is the fact that we really do try to sort of broaden. And I say we because it's always a we, right? When I'm dealing with a company or when I'm on a makeup team, we're always trying to broaden our base and do more things. The more things that we can do, the more accessibility people have to us as a company and me as an artist. So it's one of those things where it's like, if you can do bodies, if you do robotics, and you can do rigs, and you can do character makeups. And the way that I see this sort of catalog that we're going to be unleashing is yet another avenue, right? It's another accessibility that people have to you. So whether or not it's the individual artwork that people like, because we do try our best, or it's the fact that, we are a consistent group of people that they can depend on and know that we'll show up and know that we'll bring our A game to it, to use a tired cliche. But, I think that makes us stand out more than other people or other shops is the fact that we do try to be there in all aspects of those things and we're consistent. And I think that that's key. I think you can be the best artist in the world, but if you're not consistent, then, people can't depend on you. That's the number one thing is people have to depend on you. And I think if they can depend on you, then you can stand out above other people and other shops. And I think that's that way in business in general. But I think, much more so when it comes to sort of artistic endeavors as well.
It's very true. Hey, now what are some of the latest jobs that you guys have done? What can we look out for?
That's fun. We kind of got our fingers in quite a few things right now. Well, something airing right now is Penny Dreadful, City of Angels. And that was a great experience. We were originally referred to that job by another effects company, believe it or not, named Fractured Effects. And
cool.
Justin Raleigh had started on that pilot. They didn't get to filming or anything before he needed to walk away from the project because I think it became a little bit more involved than what he had time to do at that particular point. So he recommended us.
Oh, cool.
And we came onto that. And that was a great experience because of, of course, I was a big fan of the Penny Dreadful series before then, and this one's much different.
It's very different.
Very different, which I think has a lot of people shaken, and a lot of people don't like that, but I think it's got a whole new audience of people that really do love that, Yeah.
But just have to look at it as a completely separate situation.
Right. There's a lot of people like, I wish they didn't call it Penny Dreadful. And you're like, why? It's perfect because the Penny Dreadfuls were, these sort of, Victorian comic books that had different stories of dread, And, working with John Logan, I mean, the guy is just the creator of Penny Dreadful he's extraordinary. I mean, he's an extraordinary writer. Everything is detailed. He knows exactly what he wants. And, that's been a great relationship, and also just touching base a little bit about, having been referred to that project from Fractured Effects and Justin and everything, that's also another thing to touch base on is I think that, some of the newer shops and what's going on right now is that though we are all in business and we are all competitive because we have to be, there's a lot of camaraderie going on. Like, I work a lot with Vince Van Dyke, effects. And it's nice that, I'm very friendly with Fractured Effects. And, there's a lot of other shops that, it's not necessarily a cutthroat business anymore. It's everybody sort of supporting one another, the best they can, and that has been that's been one of the best things over the last couple of years is all this sort of working together,
That's so cool.
And pushing each other because it becomes sort of much more of a sort of, I wouldn't say a family thing, but it becomes much more of an artistic collaboration that you can do with other shops. You can see how they're doing it and they see how you're doing it. And, it's priceless, right? Because it's comfortable,
Yeah. And then you're not having to deal with a whole bunch of bullshit either.
No, not at all. And it's people that are supporting with good people. And it kind of comes back to going back to knowing that, everybody gets a turn, right? And if you're supportive of that, then, it's great. It's really great because you get to sort of, when other people have successes, you get to be happy about that and enjoy that because you really care for that person and like that shop. And
that's so cool.
I think that's really different these days than what's been going on before. So, we can get a show like Penny Dreadful and from another shop. And I have no problem saying, I got that because of them. And they thought highly enough of our work to refer us. And now I have a great relationship with those producers. And, meanwhile, including everybody in on it, it's great. It's a great experience, Back to some of the other projects that we're doing, we are currently wrapping up our sort of participation in a show called The Orville. Well, we're wrapping that up now, and another shop's taking that over, that's been a great experience. We just did a film that was just out called The Hunt, which was...
I haven't seen it, but I need to see it because I've heard about it. And okay.
It's fun. I don't understand why I got so mired in politics because it really is a film that's making fun of everybody. the whole political system right now, which look, all sides need to be made fun of at this particular point.
Yeah, things get lost in translation sometimes, don't they? If I don't know.
Yeah, and I also
people don't understand.
I think that the gore was, a bit much for a lot of people.
No, I have to see it.
But that was another great experience that we were brought on by a makeup department head that we work with a lot. Her name is Lauren Thomas. She's fantastic. She's amazing, and she brings us onto a lot of things, and we work really well with her. It's another great collaboration. It's awesome. The friends that you make along the way, right?
Mm-hmm. Totally.
And then we're doing the 4th season of a show called Snowfall. We've done all the seasons up until now. It's not a huge show for us, but there's always somebody dying or being shot up or a body being hung, cut up, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Nice. There was 2 or 3 other projects that we're kind of in the middle of that we don't really know what's going on with them at this point in time, but we shall resume soon enough.
Awesome.
But it's fun.
That's very cool. Hey, I was going to ask you, what tool or product would you not want to work without? I want you to choose one. I know that that's extremely difficult. What did you just say?
Telesis.
Okay.
It's the one product that is, that I cannot work without. It's proven, field tested, proved time and time again, best product there is out there for gluing down a prosthetic, if I had to pick one.
And would you like them to stop discontinuing certain ones?
It's funny because at first I was like that, and then I started, having to use the other ones, and I found that the other ones, once you learn how to use them, are actually better. They actually hold better.
I guess that's the point of bringing them out, right?
Right. Like Telesis 5 was fantastic. Everybody loved Telesis 5. But then with Telesis 8F, I've found that's way stronger than Telesis 5 when it's used in the right way. You have to have, there's a little bit of a working curve with it, but once you learn, it's I think a better product than 5 was. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. There's a trick.
But everything is evolving, right? Companies evolve with their products, and standards, FDA standards are always being changed, and people have to always sort of change their product formulas, and you have to sort of change with them. The important thing is to really stand by, like PPI, who makes that product, is really stand by that product and that company, and, give them as much feedback, as you can when they ask you. And they're really receptive to feedback, which is fantastic. So that's one product I can't live without.
Love it. And tell me, what one person would you like to hear on the podcast?
Yeah, you should have Vince Van Dyke if you can. Yeah, okay. I love Vince, and he's got this. He's got a really great fresh eye perspective. He's another young shop out there that's doing incredible work and multiple collaborations with multiple people. And I'm a huge fan of his work, of course, and professionally and just personally, he's a really great friend, and I think he'd be a great interview.
Thank you, Jason Collins. You rock. Love chatting to you. Always a pleasure.
Well, thank you, Jamie. Thanks for doing this, actually, because these are a pleasure to listen to, because, I think that they're really focused, really positive, and the times that you're interviewing people, they go by really fast, actually. And it's really enjoyable listening to everybody's take on it, and you're getting a wide variety of people from Europe, people from here, so thank you for actually putting forth the effort in doing this.
Oh, you're awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
For links to see more from Jason and Autonomous FX, go to our Instagram at The Last Looks Podcast or the episode notes page on our website, www.thelastlookspodcast.com. The Last Looks Podcast would like to thank Brett Stanley and Sabrina Castro. The song Fun Time by DJ Quads. Thanks for listening. Until next time.
That's a wrap, people.